Hi, everyone, and welcome to the medieval era. Now, we have to start somewhere, and while ancient Greeks and Romans had a thing or two to say about music, and before that, prehistoric man probably hummed some sort of mastodon hunting song each morning, music history as we know it today really began with Gregorian chant, or also known as plainsong. Now, back in the 6th century, monks began to chant scriptures and thought, hey, this sounds pretty nice. We should make some rules, maybe. Which would probably make a lot more sense than what actually happened. So the real story is Pope Gregory, for whom Gregorian chant is named after, decided to codify chants around 600 AD, set down some rules. Now, he claims what he heard was a dove descend from heaven, land on his shoulder, and sing every single one of the chants into his ear. Now, this is true. You can look this up. And that is how we got Gregorian chant. Pope Gregory listening to birds. Now, after a few centuries, people were, just kind of singing the songs into each other's ears, kind of like that bird. One person would sing the song into the other person's ear. That monk would then be like, oh, I now know that chant. Let me pass it along. And this happened for 500 years until we had Guido of Arezzo and his Guidonian hand around 1000 AD. Now, Guido didn't really have a high opinion of singers. He kind of thought they were lazy and not really good at music, and so he wanted to create a method for them to sing more accurately. So what he did was he created a Guidonian hand, which was based off of a famous chant called Ut Queant Laxis, or Hymn to St. John, and he created solfege using the first syllables and mapped them onto the singer's hand. Now, this concept changed slightly over the years. We don't say ut, re, mi, we say do, re, mi. But this idea of codifying how pitches were related to one another was the beginnings of notation and the beginnings of solfege. And it greatly helps scribes write down music and transfer it, rather than having people have to sing it into each other's ears. As Gregorian chants kept developing, we get something called organum, which in its simplest form involved one monk singing a Gregorian chant, and then another monk singing it at a fourth or a fifth above them, sometimes changing the speeds that they sing. This gradually got more and more complicated. When we had just one chant, it was monophony, meaning single sound. But when we had many chants going together, it turned into polyphony. Now, unfortunately, not many women were involved with any of this. I mean, if you're looking for someone to blame, you could blame St. Paul, who wrote in his first epistle to the Corinthians that, let your women be silent in the church, and monks kind of took him a little too literally. Now, to be fair, that did not stop Hildegard von Bingen, who was the OG feminist. I mean, this woman, she lived from about 1100 AD to 1179. She was a composer. She was a philosopher, a Christian mystic, a visionary, a polymath. She claimed to receive her music straight from the divine, and you got to listen to her music. It is a total trip, and the fact that she was able to do this was just completely unheard of at the time. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, Mr. Pugh, this is a lot of sacred stuff. Where's all the rock music and love music? Now, throughout musical history, music pieces can be split into two camps. We have sacred music and secular music. Sacred music talks about the divine, while secular music talks about basically everything else. Now, while most of the action during this time was happening with sacred music, secular music was gradually moving its way around the countryside. There were these traveling musicians called troubadours, or trouvères, whichever you prefer, around the countryside of France, and they would sing songs about love or fine food, and they would accompany themselves on lutes or other types of instruments at the time. Now, the most important thing to remember was, as a troubadour, that you need to sing a heartfelt song about how much you love the woman of your dreams, how beautiful their eyes are, their skin, their hair, all that kind of sort of stuff. Now, at the end of the medieval era, these songs turned into a real industry on their own. I mean, it was like basically pop songs today. Some singers would even write out their music on heart-shaped manuscripts, which is kind of cheesy, but, what are you going to do? They could have been a Hallmark card maker or something. Now, at any rate, you now get to explore some other people in the medieval era. So, I will see you soon. Have fun.